My name is Fernando Garcia. I'm the Executive Director of the Border Network for Human Rights, an organization that is based in West Texas, specifically in El Paso and in southern New Mexico. Border Network is excited to be part of CAMBIO. This is an unprecedented coalition that is bringing together people that never worked together as we are this time. Organizations that work to push back on criminalization, of lack of accountability, on this idea that immigrants are the problem in this society. So the Border Network specifically knows very well the impact of the massive border enforcement that we have in place and how this is affecting the lives and the rights of border residents. Let's remember, 640 miles of fencing, 22,000 Border Patrol agents, 500 migrants dying every year in our deserts and in our rivers and in our mountains in the border. We have spent $11 billion only last year on border enforcement. So we know in our experiences on the border how these human rights violations happen because this unaccountable enforcement, including racial profiling, but also wrongful detentions. And the worst of it is the killing of immigrants by the use of lethal force by border agents. So because all of this, the border communities had many expectations and concerns in regards to this immigration reform discussion. And one of them, and the most important of them, is to what degree this legislation that was introduced includes accountability and oversight mechanisms to this massive enforcement system in the border. In the CAMBIO poll released this week, a staggering 95% of Americans think that we need greater accountability and oversight mechanisms for Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol and border agents. Americans, they want to know that these agents are not breaking the law, that the way to do that is make them accountable to the people that they sworn to protect and serve. And yesterday, finally, the legislation was introduced. And we do see a huge step forward with the creation of the DHS Border Oversight Task Force. Border Network, CAMBIO, we actually praise the creation of the Border Oversight Task Force in the proposed legislation. This is an accountability mechanism that it would be made up of the people living at the border, working at the border, and especially because they know what the border needs. So also CAMBIO and Border Network welcome other provision in the bill that actually are providing greater restrictions in the use of lethal force by border agents against immigrants and border residents, that clearly prohibit racial profiling during immigration enforcement, that improves civil rights and human rights training for border agents, and that creates the DHS Border Community Liaison officers in every Border Patrol sector. So those were positive things. However, the inclusion of the task force and all of these provisions are just a bright spot in something that is very aggressive against our border communities. The Border Network for Human Rights and other members of CAMBIO and other border organizations such as the Southern Border Community Coalition believe that the so-called border triggers in the immigration bill are not an American mandate. They represent an attempt to further militarize our border communities and to create major obstacles for fair and humane immigration reform. What they are proposing is more fencing, the deployment of the National Guard, more drones, more Border Patrol, 100% of air surveillance of the border, 90% of apprehensions in all sectors of the border. This is unprecedented, and for many of us, potentially unattainable and unreachable. The poll commissioned by CAMBIO showed that the vast majority of Americans believe that border enforcement should be refocused to the real threats to national security. Using the precious resources to stop immigrant workers at the border doesn't make us safer, and is not what America wants. 84% of Americans say that the Border Patrol should be looking for people trafficking drugs and weapons, not going after the people that actually want to come and work for their families in the United States. So we are in the middle of a debate that potentially is not going to be affecting immigrants or border residents, but this debate is going to evolve, or it's going to evolve into what America should be. I mean, this is something that is going to affect everybody. It's going to affect the values of America. Right now, the debate is whether America should uphold those values of democracy, freedom, accountability, check and balances, or we're going to go down the road to criminalization and having policies and strategies that are unaccountable. Thank you.